Tyrone Power. End of life when sudden death comes on set. Tyrone Power was one of the great romantic swashbuckling stars of the mid-20th century, and the third Tyrone Power of four in a famed acting dynasty reaching back to the 18th century. Tyrone Edmund Power, Jr., also called Tyrone Power III, was born at his mother's home of Cincinnati, Ohio, on May 5, 1914. His ancestry included English, Irish, German, French Huguenot, and French Canadian. Power was descended from a long theatrical line going back to his great-grandfather, the Irish-born actor and comedian Tyrone Power. He had French blood from both his parents being descended from Catholic French Canadians through his mother's Room family, and from Protestant Huguenots through his paternal grandmother's Lavignou and Blosset ancestors. A frail, sickly child, he was taken by his parents to the warmer climate of Southern California. After his parents' divorce, he and his sister and Power returned to Cincinnati with their mother. There he attended school while developing an obsession with acting. Although raised by his mother, he corresponded with his father, who encouraged his acting dreams. He was a supernumerary in his father's stage production of The Merchant of Venice in Chicago, and held him as he died suddenly of a heart attack later that year. Startlingly handsome, young Tyrone nevertheless struggled to find work in Hollywood. He appeared in a few small roles, then went east to do stage work. Power made his Broadway debut in 1935 in Flowers of the Forest, and later that year he was cast as Benvolio in Romeo and Juliet. His appearance in St. Joan in 1936 led to an offer from Hollywood, and he signed with 20th Century Fox later that year. A screen test led to a contract at 20th Century Fox, and he quickly progressed to leading roles. Within a year or so, he was one of Fox's leading stars, playing in contemporary and period pieces with ease. This was followed by starring roles in a series of hits in diverse genres. He appeared in romantic comedies that included Thin Ice, 1937, Cathy Metropole, 1937, Second Honeymoon, 1937, and Daytime Wife, 1939, as well as the musicals Alexander's Ragtime Band, 1938. Second Fiddle, 1939. Most of his roles were colorful without being deep, and his swordplay was more praised than his wordplay. He was especially noted for the swashbucklers The Mark of Zorro, 1940, and The Black Swan, 1942. He served in the Marine Corps in World War II as a transport pilot, and he saw action in the Pacific Theater of Operations. After the war, he got his best reviews for an atypical part as a downward spiraling con man in Nightmare Alley, 1947. Although he remained a huge star, much of his post-war work was unremarkable. He continued to do notable stage work and also began producing films. Between films, Power kept returning to the stage. His most notable performances there were in Mr. Roberts, 1950, The Devil's Disciple, 1950, John Brown's Body, 1953, The Dark is Light Enough, 1955, and Back to Methuselah, 1958. Following a fine performance in Billy Wilder's Witness for the Prosecution, 1957, Power began production on Solomon and Sheba, 1959. Halfway through shooting, he collapsed during a dueling scene with George Sanders, and he died of a heart attack before reaching a hospital. In 1958, actor Tyrone and his wife went to Spain to shoot scenes for the epic movie Solomon and Sheba. Despite his wife's disapproval, Tyrone still went to the set despite his weak health at that time. While performing a sword fight scene with his co-star, Tyrone had a sudden heart attack and died on the way to the hospital. Despite having done up to 75% of the scenes, but because it was the main role, the producer and director accepted to replace Yul Brynner in the role of Tyrone Power. Solomon and Sheba was born with quite good sales, but was criticized by the press and public. Especially they criticized the director and Yul Brynner.